Hey guys, it's Charlie. It's the 25th of May, Tuesday, and in trying to find out what on earth drove the stock market to go from about 9,700 at the low to just over, coincidentally, oddly enough, 10,000 at the close of the day. I went through tons of news and headlines, and when I navigate through all the obvious disaster happening around the world in the banking system and in the credit markets, I find one nugget of good news, which is this consumer confidence number that came out today. And it shows that our consumer confidence level is about the same as it was in March 2008, and it's absolutely stunning to me that people want to latch onto this. But rest assured, you're going to have somebody come up to you and try to point out this green shoot that we're just as healthy as we were and just as confident as we were in March of 2008. And all you need to do to try to shake these people awake, although it'll probably be to no avail, is point out a few obvious things to them. First of all, in March 2008, Lehman Brothers was still standing. The housing bubble was, for the most part, still inflated, and we haven't seen a massive stock market crash until later that year. And in fact, the unemployment number was virtually half of what it is now. And our government wasn't co-owners of General Motors, Chrysler, Citi, AIG, you name it. And $30 trillion hadn't been handed out to a bunch of parasitic banksters on Wall Street. But all that's happened in the meantime, and nothing on the surface looks like it's getting any better. But apparently the government can put out this number that consumer confidence is right back where it should be. Well, we should take ominous warning from that. Because what happened in March of 2008 with that great consumer confidence number? People kept spending money, taking it out of their houses, going on vacation, spending money they didn't have, thinking everything was never going to come to an end, and boom, we fell off a cliff in early fall of 2008. And in my opinion, we're heading for that same exact cliff very soon. But some more data I can give to you to use as ammunition, I'll attach to this video. But just a few things are 39.68 million people are now on food stamps in this country. Basically 40 million people. It's never been that high in the history of the country, period. We've never seen this kind of number of people relying on the government to get food on the table. 370,000 homes were foreclosed in the month of March, a 10% increase from February. 10% of all mortgages in the country, 1 out of 10 in the first quarter of 2010 were delinquent. $83 billion our government managed to spend in deficit alone in the month of April. $1.6 trillion will be spent this year in deficit spending. Not the whole budget's about $4 trillion. 1.6 is going to be money that we don't have, borrowing it from China or Ben Bernanke firing up the printing presses. And in case one of your optimistic co-workers, friends, or family members wants to know how much $1 trillion is, let them know. If you spend $1 a second, it would just take you a mere 31,000 years to spend $1 trillion. A little bit of good economic news in April. Well, we had a 7.6 jump in existing home sales. But what caused that? You're not going to hear much in the news about this, but it was the one more government handout to the banks, a little trinket called first-time homeowners tax credit of $8,000, which is all well and good. You had to have the paper signed by the end of April, so we saw a spike in existing home sales. That's over and done with. The biggest statistic that I have found that gives me hope in today's news is that a Gallup poll shows that 76% of the people question, in contrary to this consumer confidence number, believe we are still in recession. Well, why is that? The facts are simple. Because we're in a depression. And even with all the propaganda from the mainstream media, the corporate-owned, vested interest in you believing that the economy is turning around, even with all that nonstop propaganda hitting the airwaves, 76% of the people still see the facts that we're in recession. But the most striking statistic I read today was 41.9%. That's the number of workers who still draw a paycheck from a private corporation or private business. That is the lowest that number has ever been in the history of the nation. That means that the vast majority of the money entering our economy is coming through government workers or government handouts. It's absolutely 100% unsustainable. How else could you describe that? 41.9% cannot flip the bill for the rest of the country. It's apt. You can be a third grader and see that. And I don't find it coincidental that we have 41.9% who are still working for private companies, and 43% of the nation only has $10,000 or less in their retirement savings. Why? Because they're probably a lot like me. They've lived through the last 2 years of a continuingly decreasing income from work, and they're having to get into their savings to make the payments. You got to make your mortgage payment. You got to go to the grocery store, and even though they don't want to count that as inflation, when the price of fresh vegetables goes up 39% in 1 month, that is inflation, plain and simple. When gasoline goes from $2 to $3 a gallon, and who knows where it's going to go with this disaster we have going on in the Gulf, that is inflation. But they want to take that out of the inflation CPI index. It's all smoke and mirrors propaganda. The stories are attached to this video. For now, it's all I got.